Welcome to the City of Bakersfield Planning Commission meeting. This television broadcast is made available through cooperation with the local cable companies, the County of Kern, and the City of Bakersfield. The Planning Commission meets on the first and third Thursdays of each month. You can watch the rebroadcast of this meeting Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 10 a.m. The planning meeting agenda is posted on the city's website at www.bakersfieldcity.us. Presiding over today's meeting, Chair Larry Coman.
Good afternoon. It is my pleasure to call to order the March 10th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. It's great to see a good turnout here tonight. So, Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Chair Coman.
Here.
Vice Chair Lomas.
Here.
Commissioner Bashertash. Commissioner Biddle.
Here.
Commissioner Bowers.
Here.
Commissioner Cater.
Here.
Commissioner Wade.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. This is the public statements portion of our agenda. Does anyone in the audience wish to address the commission regarding items listed on tonight's agenda? We're struggling with this. It's a little bit of an agenda change for us, so we're struggling with it too. So, will you please state your name and go ahead and proceed?
Yeah, my name's Josh Taylor, and I'm actually just requesting that agenda item 5D be pulled from consent.
Is that 5B as in boy or D as in dog?
D as in dog.
Okay. Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Does anybody else wish to make a public statement on any item on the agenda?
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Sanchez, and I'm here regarding the proposal for the property over on Buck Owens Boulevard and Mira Murata. Currently, it's a hotel. My office is right across the street from this hotel, and we were just getting some additional information. But I have I've had a lot of problems since we've had these low-income people living around there with them busting my windows, leaving human feces in front of our on our walkways, tearing up my my gates, walking through the property to get back through the canal where the old CHP office used to be, stealing my cameras, just basically a lot of destruction. I've had to repair certain items that were electrical because they got into it to recharge their cell phones, having to pay electricians and replace very expensive windows. And I'm just very concerned about what's going on over there.
Thank you, Doctor. That will be on the agenda, and if you want to stay when we get to items 5E, I believe it is, the developer is here tonight, and so the representatives are here, so you can be heard again on that.
And Chair Coleman, I would just want to clarify that it's under consent. The item is 5F as in Frank.
I'm sorry.
And so I don't know if Dr.
So if
Sanchez is wanting to pull the item.
Yeah, so if you want to have that item pulled for discussion, you need to tell us that. You need to come back and tell us that.
So all you do is
Yes, if you could pull the item 5F for discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to make a statement on an item that's on the agenda? Does anyone in the audience wish to address an item that is not on the agenda? If so, please come to the microphone and state your name and proceed. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item number 4, consent calendar items.
All matters listed under the consent items do not require a public hearing and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of said items unless staff or a commissioner requests specific items be discussed and/or removed for separate action. May I get a motion approving the consent items?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thank you. That's Commissioner Biddle. You have a second, please?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
And Commissioner Bowers. Guess we're going to do the electronic voting. There we go.
Motion is approved with Commissioner Bashertash and Commissioner Wade absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item number 5, consent public hearings.
Now is the time for consent public hearing items. If the item is not removed by a commissioner, staff, or a member of the public, the commission will vote on all items in one motion without further comment. If an item is removed, it will be placed at the end of the non-consent public hearing items. Items 5D and 5F have been requested to be pulled off, and they will be heard at the end of the consent public hearing items. This time I will open all of the consent public hearing items. Does any member of the public wish to remove a consent public hearing item that we haven't already removed? Does any commissioner or staff wish to remove a consent public hearing item? At this time, the consent public hearing items not removed are now closed. May I get a motion to adopt staff's recommendation on the consent public hearing items not removed, incorporating all staff memoranda and revised staff recommendations?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to adopt.
That was Commissioner Bowers. May I have a second, please?
I'll second that.
And Commissioner Biddle. Thank you, Ms. Biddle. Please cast your votes.
Motion is approved with Commissioner Bashertash and Commissioner Wade absent.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item number 6, non-consent public hearings.
So,
All right, so,
I was going to clarify, the first one that went before was 5D as in dog.
5D, we're going to hear them in order, 5D, then 5F.
In the order they were pulled as well, yes.
Okay, thank you. Now is the time for non-consent public hearing items. Before we begin, I want to explain how each hearing will be conducted. Staff will first give a report, then those in favor of the project will be allowed to speak. Those in opposition to the project will be able to speak after all those in favor have spoken. Each side will be given 5 minutes to provide rebuttal comments. Individual speakers may ask questions during their statements, but the questions will not be answered until the public hearing on that item is closed. Written comments may be given to the clerk, who will provide copies to the commission. Please be respectful of others participating in the hearing by not repeating the remarks of previous speakers and presenting any new comments or thoughts in a concise and clear way. Mr. Johnson, would you please provide us your staff report for item 5D?
Thank you, Chair Coleman. Tonight, I'm going to invite, we have an associate planner, Jose Fernandez, who will be presenting this project.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners. My name is Jose Fernandez. I'm an associate planner with the Development Services Department. Item 5D is a general plan amendment / zone change, 21-0302. The project site is 11.22 gross acres and is located at 9700 and 9850 Camino Media. The site is located near offices to the north and south, Cal State University Bakersfield to the east. The request includes a general plan amendment to change the land use designation from office commercial to high medium density residential. The zone change would go from CO for office use to R2, limited multifamily dwelling. A mitigated negative declaration was prepared, submitted to the State Clearinghouse for review on February 8th, and circulated for a 30-day review period. All public noticing requirements were followed. 2 comment letters were received, one by the Department of Toxic Substances Control and the other by Kern County Superintendent of Schools. Responses to these comments were provided in a memo to your commission prior to the meeting. The planned unit development, or PUD, combining zone was not requested by the applicant. However, without a final site plan, staff recommends the PUD combining zone be added to the requested R2, which would require your commission to consider the development plans at a regularly scheduled public hearing meeting in the future. As such, your commission has the option of either 1, approve the project as requested, or 2, approve the zone change to a more restrictive classification. Based on the foregoing, staff recommends your commission adopt the resolution adopting the mitigated negative declaration, approving the general plan amendment, and approving the zone change to a more restrictive designation, and recommending the same to City Council. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. What was your name again?
Jose Fernandez.
Oh, Jose, thank you very much. All right, the public hearing on this item is now open. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in favor of the project? If so, please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed.
Good evening, Honorable Chairperson, members of the Commission. My name is Tom D. I represent the owner. I'm only here tonight.
I'm sorry, Tom, can you say and spell your last name, please?
D-E-E.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm here tonight to go on record as being in favor of the staff report with the PUD overlay, which brings us back to you at a later date when we do have actual drawings and site plans. We have a lot of that stuff working right now. We're excited about this piece of property and look forward to the approval of the general plan amendment and the zone change. So we defer to any comments later on should there be the need. You know, we'll be back. We're here to say whatever, so I'm not sure what's going to happen. But anyways, just wanted to say thanks to everyone.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in favor of the project? If so, please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed. Seeing none, is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the project? Please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed.
Hello, my name is Jay Runyon, and I'm speaking on agenda item 5D. I'm a local union carpenter, and my family and I live in Bakersfield, California. residential construction has a history of exploiting immigrants who can be human trafficked from city to city. One way to curb the issue is to have a local hire requirement on projects of this caliber. I ask that your board continue the decision of this project to next month's meeting, by which time the carpenters can have the opportunity to meet with the developer and discuss our concerns. Thank you.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Giancarlo Lopez. I'm speaking for the agenda item 5D. I'm a local union carpenter. My family and I lived in Bakersfield. The term skilled and trained workforce applies to graduates of the state approval and apprenticeship program. Currently, this project has no skilled and trained workforce language to ensure that the project is being constructed by qualified professionals. I ask that your board continues this decision of this project to the next month's meeting, by which time the carpenters can have the opportunity to meet with the developer and to discuss our concerns. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sadie Lopez, and I am speaking on agenda item 5D. I'm a local union carpenter, and my family and I live in Bakersfield. Employer-provided medical insurance is important in construction, as it is one of the most dangerous careers, but especially important during a pandemic, and yet most residential contractors do not provide health insurance. I ask that your board continue the decision of this project to next month's meeting, by which time the carpenters can have the opportunity to meet with the developer and discuss our concerns. Thank you.
Good evening, Chairman and Committee. My name is Cesar Molina, and I'm speaking on agenda item 5D. I'm a local union carpenter, and my family and I live in Bakersfield. I believe that state-certified apprenticeships programs are key in creating the next generation of skilled workers. Most residential contractors don't use apprentices, which hinders the workforce of the future. I ask that your board continue the decision to this project to next month's meeting, by which time the carpenters can have the opportunity to meet with the developer and discuss our concerns. Thank you.
Good evening, commissioners and staff. My name is Josh Taylor, local resident here in Bakersfield, born and raised, and I'm speaking to agenda item 5D. Now, you've heard from the locally skilled and trained carpenters and apprentices tonight who are seeking your assistance in creating a dynamic within our communities that would positively impact the city, the residents, and developers. When developers and contractors participate in local hire, apprenticeship, skilled and trained workforce, and employer-provided health care for craft workers, they pave the way for local economic sustainability and growth. In short, building better community wealth through jobs, wages, and benefits. The current model of approving plan amendments, zone changes, and the like does not as effectively support local economic sustainability. These local residents have simply asked you to continue this agenda item until such a time that the developer, staff, and labor can meet to discuss these standards as they could apply to this specific development and zone change. And I would hope that this commission would not impinge upon the rights of labor for sake only of the developer. Now, please do understand that we know that this city benefits from more housing, but that should be done and built responsibly. So what I am here to ask, in addition to asking for the continuance of this agenda item to a later date, is for the commissioners to direct staff to meet with my team to address the issues heard tonight and develop a strategy moving forward on projects that are requesting plan amendments. Thank you.
Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to this project? If so, please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed. Does any commissioner have any questions for the public on this item? Remember, this is not the time to express any opinions on the matter. It's only time to ask questions. Commissioner Bowers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is more for the developer. Have you had a chance to meet with the party with respect to their request? Maybe you can answer that.
Tom D., representing Community Properties. This is the beginning stages of a development, okay? As we get to the next level, which is the PD plans, we come back before you guys and we'll have actual plans at that point in time. We can actually look at something and be able to talk about how many nuts and bolts and sticks are on there. We typically don't build them. We hire a general contractor, or we'll hire another home builder or an outside resource to do our general contracting. So, cutting a deal with me, I don't know what it means, but the bottom line is we're here to listen. We're hopeful that you can approve us and move forward tonight with our general plan amendment and zone change. And as we process the plans, if these gentlemen would wish to speak with us, our doors are open. So, does that answer your question?
Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the public or the staff at this time? All right. This is a time for rebuttals. Each side would be given a total of 5 minutes for rebuttal. Is there anyone who wishes to provide a rebuttal on this item? This would go to the developer first. You've already spoken? Okay. Does anybody in opposition wish to rebut anything that's been said by the applicant? Sure. You have a total of 5 minutes on this, so everybody, so.
Yeah, no problem. I'll take care of the rebuttal for our group. So I understand that this zone change is very, very early phases, and that there's a PD, precise development coming down the road, and that the developer themselves do not hire the subcontractors generally that perform the work. They do often hire or contract with a general contractor who then makes those decisions on who will do the work. But historically in this area, when it comes to residential development, there is no apprenticeship participation. There is sometimes local hire. There's often not skilled and trained workforce, and we hardly ever see any medical being provided. Now, as the developer who gets the opportunity to decide who the general contractor or home builder will be for these projects, they have the ability to decide how that will be built and constructed and under what standards. And I would ask the developer to consider those options, and for the commissioners to understand that the developer has ultimately the say-so on who and how this land is developed and the project is built. Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to offer any rebuttal comments in opposition? Okay. I will now close the public hearing on this item and return it to the commission for comment and action.
Chair Coleman, if I may, while the commission deliberates, for the benefit of the audience, this is a general plan amendment zone change where your commission is making a recommendation. You're not approving or denying this request. It's a recommendation to City Council based on your motion that you make. So between now and April 20th, when this is scheduled for City Council, there is time for Mr. Tom D. and the Carpenters Union to meet and discuss items. And the Carpenters Union, maybe at that time, if they're not compelled or what, they can come and speak at City Council. But again, you're only making a recommendation. General plan amendments, as per the state law, can only go 4 times a year. So to continue this at your planning commission level, it kind of puts the rest of the general plan amendment zone changes a little bit in jeopardy to make sure that those also hit a time frame.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Commissioner Cater.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. That was something I was going to ask, so I appreciate that. Because I do think what we're looking at tonight is really whether this lot, which was previously approved or zoned in the general plan as office, can now proceed as multifamily. And I think my thoughts on the matter are this particular part of our community has developed a lot of really great uses. You know, we have education with Cal State, we have a hospital, very successful retail center, very successful corporate offices, and a plethora of different single-family home options. I think one thing that's always, to me, been lacking in this near vicinity is an option of good rental housing. And so I'm generally in support of the zone change, and think given the change in demand of kind of professional office zoning within our city, I would support the request to rezone the property from CO to R2.
Are there any other commissioners who'd like to comment on this item? Commissioner Biddle.
I'd have to agree with Commissioner Cater. While using local hire is very important in driving our local economy and making sure that everybody gets decent wages, and we use those companies. But this is a good project for the area, and we're looking at really just the recommendation of using it, not the nuts and bolts that come to City Council. So I appreciate everybody showing up, and it's great to see voices united like this. But this does look like a good project for the area.
Thank you, Commissioner Biddle. Commissioner Lomas.
I'm curious what our city attorney thinks about this request. I've never in all the years of sitting up here have heard labor standing in the way of a project.
Commissioner Lomas, I would say that labor negotiations are not in the Planning Commission's purview. You are deciding just whether the general plan amendment and zone change moves forward. I don't believe that even when it gets to City Council, it would be something that Council would be able to negotiate or advocate. I mean, they can definitely say how they feel about it, but they can't force the developer to negotiate with the union.
Thank you. I'll too support the project this evening.
Commissioner Bowers, did you have something else you wanted to offer?
All I was going to say, Mr. Chairman, I'll second Commissioner Cater's motion.
Thank you. I'd like to comment before we move forward with the motion that I appreciate the labor here talking about this. We need more housing. I think everybody can agree we need more housing. These processes are so long to get, to actual houses where people are actually living in them. So there's going to be plenty of opportunity between now and that time. I think it's important that we keep the project moving forward, but that you still have an opportunity to meet with the developer and whoever the builder inevitably becomes. And so we do encourage the developer to sit down with the labor and have some discussions in whatever format you guys can work out. But I agree with the commission as a group that we probably need to keep the project moving forward. So that's my point. And so there is a motion. Did you make a motion, Commissioner Cater?
I can make a proper motion, which will make the motion to adopt staff's recommendation on item 5D, the approval of the GPA and the more restrictive limited multifamily R2 PUD zone classification.
Thank you, Commissioner Cater. May I have a second, please?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second Commissioner Cater's motion.
That's Commissioner Bowers' second. Can we go ahead and record your vote, please?
Motion approved with Commissioner Basher-Tash and Commissioner Wade absent.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Chair Coleman, if I may,
Yes.
even though you're making a recommendation, your decision is still appealable to City Council, even though it's going to City Council? So I'd just like to read the appeal process, just for the record. So decisions of the commission are subject to appeal by any person that believes they are adversely affected. The appeal must be filed in writing within 10 days from the date of the commission's decision. The appeal must be addressed to the city council and include the appellant's interest in or relationship to the project, identify the decision appealed, and address the facts and reasons why the commission's decision should not be upheld. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen, for ladies and gentlemen, for coming here tonight. Thank you.
Agenda item number 7, workshops.
I'm sorry, we're on to 5F for the, I'm sorry, I should have advised you on that. We're still on the non-consent public hearing items, and we're on to item 5F. So I will say that, Mr. Johnson, would you please provide us with your staff report?
Yes, I'm just going to give a brief overview, and then we'll invite Dr. Sanchez back up. So project is located on the north end of Buck Owens Boulevard. It is currently, as was noted, a hotel that's being converted over to a residential use. With that, we have a general plan amendment going from HC, highway commercial, to HR, and a zone change going from light industrial to residential. This is a kind of a preliminary site plan. This will go through the entire site plan review process, as noted in the staff report, to ensure development standards are being met. We did receive one written comment from the Kern County Water Agency regarding the intersection that we see there circled with the project site to the west. That was addressed in a memorandum that was prepared for your commission and provided earlier today. With that said, staff is recommending approval as requested from light industrial to residential. And if I may, I'll just leave this slide present because Dr. Sanchez may like to use this to reference where her office building is. Thank you.
Thank you. The public hearing on this item is now open, and I'm first going to invite anybody to speaking up in favor of the project to please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed.
Russell Johnson, Common Sense Consulting on behalf of the property owner. The spelling of my name is R-U-S-S-E-L-L, Johnson, J-O-H-N-S-O-N. Chairman Coman, members of the commission, thank you for your time tonight. I did meet with the individuals that asked to remove this item from consent, so I'm not going to talk a lot right now. I'll let them say what they have to say, and then I'll be happy to address their concerns. With that, this is moving an existing hotel into more permanent residential. It's going to be multifamily residential R4, which is a good thing for the area. It will elevate the area. Also, we have Ian Parks with Rutgers and Schuler is here to address if there are any additional questions that any of the commissioners have in relationship to the traffic comment and the memo that city staff prepared. So thank you, and look forward to hearing some additional comments.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Is anyone else here who'd like to speak in favor of the project? Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to speak in opposition to the project? Please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed. Sir, if you're here to speak in opposition, you can probably just move forward so you can save a little time. So, thank you.
As I understand it, they are wanting to reclassify the zone from, as he said, light manufacture to a high-density multifamily dwelling. And I've been in the office directly across the street. I'm not really sure where to identify that on that map, but it's a fairly large building directly across from it. And my office has been there roughly about 6 years. And when they recently converted it to, I don't know if it's considered a family housing unit right now, but I think it is because it's not being treated as a regular hotel. We have noticed a lot of disruption in my practice. These people, we have observed them leaving the hotel, walking across, through my parking lot. They have cut, as I mentioned, the gates to get across the property to wherever they go every day. They come out at night and they have started fires there. They have left their human waste on the sidewalks. They have broken a lot of windows, attempted to shoot in with BB guns, stolen my cameras, and they come in from time to time during office hours into our waiting room. And, you know, quite frankly, they do scare some of our patients away and our staff. They have been found outside shooting up heroin. And this is my concern that I have a practice there, and I've been a very successful doctor in town, and I don't want to lose clients because of the nature of what's going on across the street.
Okay. Please go ahead and state your name and proceed.
Hi, my name's Don Clark. I am also a business owner that operates right next door to the former hotel, I guess they're calling it now. I'm not real sure. It's kind of been a last minute pitch. I found out about this about 4:30 this afternoon. So I came running down here. I wonder if there wasn't a better way to maybe talk with all of the businesses in the area, because we only have 2 of us that are being represented out of at least a dozen businesses that are directly in the area that are affected by what's going on there now. When it was a hotel back in the day, I even used the hotel as a training center, waiting for my suite to be prepared and be ready to go for business. It was a place that my customers actually stayed at. Through one point in time, it just automatically turned from a hotel to a place that people were not only staying, extended stay, I think is what they call it now, but it's not available to bring, it's not an actual extended stay. Any extended stay that I know of, a guy could call there. My classes are a week long, so my customers need housing for the week, and that's what they used to do, is stay right there next door to us. It was very convenient. Now it's not a public hotel. It's something that I'm not sure where the money comes from, but it isn't something that any of my customers are able to utilize. I'm not sure about this whole project because, like I said, this is a last minute thing for us. I was kind of hoping that maybe we could get together with some of the property owners around there and be able to discuss this, maybe with the developer, and see if it's going to be a better thing to make this into housing. But when they say high density housing, I'm not sure if it's going to actually better us, or if it's going to stay the same, or if it's actually going to get worse. So that's one of my concerns, is just assurance of a better, not worse situation. One of the other things that I was thinking about too was the fact of what happens to the current residents. We have people that are around the corner from us towards the water district back in the back that you guys have circled on the map that are staying. There's one particular Volkswagen that stays in particular, just different spots a while. They just kind of move into their cars. And that's what's happened at this point, is you have people living in cars outside of this hotel, motel / extended stay. And I'm just feeling a little bit rushed with the matter. I talked to the developer a little bit before we came in here, and he tried to lay some facts down for us. I would like time to be able to digest those, share those with some other business owners around us. We have over a dozen suites in my building, and then there are the other businesses next to the medical clinic across the street, Wesco, Forklift Place, and a few other places back there. So it was just a thought that somehow, before things went too far, that we could actually be told of this stuff, because it seems that as we get to the point of being too late, we have no chance for rebuttal. So that's the reason that I came down here, and those are my main concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clark. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak in opposition to the project? If so, please step to the microphone, identify yourself, and proceed.
Hi, I'm Scott Power. I own the business right across the street.
I'm sorry, can you say and spell your last name, please?
Power, Power.
Thank you.
And I own the business right across the street from the hotel, and just wanted to agree with the other two. We've seen increase in issues lately with break-ins and people walking across, doing drugs. We see a lot of police over there, and we're just in disagreement with the mentality that this would be good for a residential complex. Thanks.
Thank you. Is anyone else that wishes to speak in opposition to the project? Does any commissioner have any questions of the public on this item? Remember, this is not the time to express opinions on the matter. It is only a time to ask questions. Commissioner Cater.
Yeah, my question is for the applicant. I was hoping, Mr. Johnson, if you could clarify what currently is in operation at the former hotel.
Yes, one moment. Sorry, I'm sending pictures of the sign to city staff.
Okay.
There you go. So currently the hotel is operating as an extended stay hotel, and that's the current use and for the current zoning. And the applicant's intent is that as they do the general plan amendment zone change, it'll turn into permanent housing. So the intent is to elevate and improve the area. In regards to some of the questions that were addressed regarding, oh, I'm sorry, I'm going
This
beyond.
isn't the rebuttal time, it's just questions. So,
Go ahead.
so just then to clarify with another question, the new owner is not the current operator and owner of the hotel?
No,
The extended stay operator currently is not who plans to operate the permanent housing?
Yeah, so the current owner of the hotel acquired the property actually when the condition, or right around the same time the conditional use permit that's in place expired. They operated it, they're currently operating with a manager as a hotel. Once it moves into permanent housing, it'll be a totally different business model.
By the same ownership or different ownership?
Same ownership, because the ownership owns the property.
Okay.
Is going to own the permanent housing.
Okay, perfect. And then my one other question was for staff. And I was trying to pull up the Bakersfield Municipal Code, but is in the M1 current zoning, is high-density multifamily permitted with a conditional use, or would it need a zone change to become housing?
It needs a zone change to become housing in the M1 zone, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do any other commissioners have any questions for the public or staff? Okay. Commissioner Biddle.
Probably a silly question, but is this the end of the line for this? So if it gets approved tonight, it gets built, or is there more steps to the process?
Similar to the previous project, this still you're making a recommendation to City Council. This general plan amendment zone change will still go to City Council for final approval or denial.
Is there anyone who wishes to provide a rebuttal on this item? If so, please be prepared to step to the podium. Each side will only have 5 minutes, so make your comments succinct without repeating remarks of previous speakers.
Thank you, Chairman Coleman. Russell Johnson again on behalf of the applicant. Just want to address some of the concerns of the neighbors. First, in regards to the concerns about some of the crime and some of the vandalism that's happened, while we don't have evidence that those folks may have not crossed through the property owner's property and then gone through onto the adjacent neighbors, we don't know where that's coming from. I will work with the folks that are here tonight, and we'll get with the property owner, and we'll address some security concerns before the city council hearing, and also to address security so it can be addressed on site. So, but ultimately, at the end of the day, by approving general plan amendment and zone change, it allows the property owner to convert the property into permanent housing and put additional investment into the property. So, thank you.
If there's anyone else that wishes to speak in favor, rebuttal in favor. Okay. So at this point, anybody would like to rebut in opposition, so this would be Dr. Sanchez and Mr. Clark, opportunity to rebut anything that's been said. You'll have a total of 5 minutes. That's for everybody. We're having a little trouble with the clock here, so give us a second.
I just wanted to bring the point up that when we keep calling this an extended stay, like I said, my customers have tried calling over there out of habit and trying to get rooms to stay in over there. And at this point, in my opinion, and maybe it's something that we could look into, it is not an extended stay hotel. I believe, I'm not sure, but I believe the money is state money that's coming in and funding people that need low-income housing, maybe on a temporary basis, I'm not sure. But when we keep calling this an extended stay hotel, that is not what we're seeing at this point. And if we're going to not call an ace, at that point, I'm afraid that when we get to the next step of the project, that the same thing's going to happen. So I'd like for those things to be asked about and held to the stone and make sure that they are true for true. Thank you.
Doctor, did you want to offer any more comments? All right, thank you. I will now close the public hearing on this item and return it to the commission for comment and action. Do we have any commissioners that would like to speak on this item? How about Commissioner Bowers?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will just say, since we essentially have to advance this over to City Council, I think there's an opportunity. I understand, having a business or working for a business right in that vicinity, how difficult it can be. And there is a influx in crime that we have seen, and we have seen a lot of vandalism in our parking lot, kind of down the street in the same vicinity that you guys are in. I think it's an opportunity to work with the owner at this time. I think that you look at that facility, it is an eyesore. It definitely needs some improvement, and I think that this kind of project could, be an answer to help improving the area specifically. So I'm in favor of moving this on over to the City Council, but what I would strongly recommend is that the developer or the applicant sit down with these neighbors, all the neighbors, and be intentional about trying to solve this security issue. It is an issue. And so it's hard to say where it's coming from, but it's pretty noticeable where it's coming from. So I encourage strongly that the applicant sits down with the business owners in that area.
Commissioner Biddle.
I completely understand where the property owners are coming from. Even just being downtown, I've came into contact off of F Street, people that have stayed in that residence. So I am curious to what the current use is. But saying no, not in my backyard doesn't work, and it is an eyesore. It is dilapidated, it's not ran properly. So if there's a way that we can get more information, because I'm a little bit shocked on there's not a whole lot of what's going on inside of it, or who's running it, or what the plans are for it, what type of housing. I mean, there's so many questions left in this that I think can be answered at City Council, but it's the community oversight, and it's your ability to go to these meetings and make sure that you voice your opinions on how this should be ran, because it could either be a beacon of hope or it could be a problem in the area. So with community oversight, I think a project like this could really do a lot of good. There's a lot of employment in that area, but I understand your concerns.
Commissioner Lomas.
If the applicant would come up and shed a little light, I think you probably are the one that has the answers. So if you could first begin by telling us what is the use right now and a better idea of what it's looking like, what your new business model is.
Yes, so thank you, Commissioner Lomas, through the chair, Russell Johnson on behalf of the applicant. So right now the use is operating as what's called an extended stay hotel, which an extended stay hotel, from what I understand, allows people to stay for longer than 30 days. So that is the current use right now operating under the current zoning. However, the property owner is not wanting to be in the hotel business. They want to be in the multifamily business. So they're intentional in the general plan amendment and zone change is to transform the property once they have the general plan amendment zone change, so it can be a long-term permanent housing, and it is market rate housing. It is not intended to be affordable housing. It is market rate housing.
And as a follow-up with that, how many units are you forecasting? What would be the rent range, the square footage, that kind of thing?
It's a great question. Right now, the hotel has 207 rooms, and currently, the way the property owners are approaching it is that until you have the general plan amendment zone change, it's very difficult to go through and pay for the architectural work, plumbing, mechanical, and it's an existing building, and in order to rewire, replumb, redo all that is an extensive amount of investment. So until they have the general plan amendment zone change, which gets them to that point, at that point, then they will develop the full building plans for a full remodel and changing of the facility.
But they have done something to see if it is marketable, if it is, and you can't share any of that.
Correct. They have done that. They know that if they were with the general plan amendment zone change, it can immediately turn into apartments. And they know that with that apartment valuation and the housing situation in the state of California and Kern County, there's a need for multifamily housing, and they see the value in that. In terms of how many units they're going to end up with, they could end up with 207, but I don't have a definitive answer because I don't have plans to say this is what the final answer is going to be. So I would hate to misrepresent to the commissioner, to the public, hey, it's going to be 100 rooms, hey, it's going to be 50 rooms, when right now it's operating as 207 hotel rooms.
And I don't know who to ask this question to. So at 207, what would traffic look like? And can 207 units be developed there?
I'll speak to that since you're looking at me. I'll speak to part of that, I shall say. It is currently 207 rooms, so if those were converted to, I'll just say, studio apartments, it would still be 207 residential units. And again, I believe the traffic engineer from Rutgers and Schuler is here that can speak on the impacts. But what we have found, though, is that the average daily trips would actually potentially go down as opposed to increase from residential to hotel. So in other words, there could be less traffic impacts than increased traffic impacts.
And 207 would be allowed.
And that's part of the reason they're going for this general plan designation and zoning, is because of the site being approximately 4 acres. They need that higher designation to get those 207 units, yes.
Okay, so it fits.
It does fit, yes.
That was my question. Thank you.
I would also like to note that there is a shortfall, as Mr. Johnson said, in housing. If, depending on the funding source, if this was low income housing, it could be a by right use, and we would not be here for the general plan amendment or zone change. It could just be converted.
Thank you. That answers my question. And for opinion, since we get to have opinion now, there is a huge need for housing and actually smaller units, more affordable units. So I will look to the other commissioners for their opinion, but so far it looks like a proper fit for the area and an improvement. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Lomas. Commissioner Cater.
Thank you, Chair. I would say generally the current zoning and its location at a weird intersection where one freeway meets another, kind of isolated from any kind of off. I do think the current zoning does kind of relegate it to an extended stay hotel for its future. To be honest, I wish we knew a little more about the developer's plans. I think hearing tonight, neighborhood concerns coming around the same time as a new ownership change, with the owner being the one proposing the project, has me a little concerned. I do think this building is very residential in nature, and I think housing being what it is and the need to disperse housing more evenly throughout our community near to job centers, I think I'm a huge supporter of that. So I would be curious. So generally I'm in favor, similar to our last one we looked at, the concept of this becoming multifamily to me is very exciting. The concern for me is really the transparency in the process and how the neighbors are able to participate in the process. So I was curious, if we went to an R4 zone, could we apply a PUD overlay so that so there would be opportunities for the public to come out and express concerns and see things like where fencing is proposed, where circulation is proposed, so that this process can be a little bit more forthcoming with the adjacent neighbors that have expressed some very valid concerns, I think. Mr. Johnson, that would be a question for you.
Your commission, this was advertised to include the more restrictive option. So yes, your commission could add the PUD overlay if you so chose. I would note that as with all general plan amendments and zone changes, the site was posted at least 20 days in advance of this hearing to notify the public that would be driving by, in addition to a mailing of 300 feet.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
But
so
your commission could impose the PUD overlays, so if you so choose.
okay, thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? I would, well, good. Okay. I agree that we need housing, but I'm concerned about the way it's being operated currently, and I think we shouldn't discount Dr. Sanchez's concerns about that area. I know that Commissioner Bowers has expressed issues where they're at, just not too far away. So that whole area seems to have a problem more so than other areas in the community. So I don't know if we can ask staff to ask code enforcement to pay a little bit more attention to that area. I didn't realize we were having the kind of problems that Dr. Sanchez mentioned there. But I think for me, again, I think that we do need the housing and we need it now. And so I don't want to be in the way of that. But I like the idea that Commissioner Cater proposed, where there was to be some more oversight going forward. So that's my comments. Commissioner Lomas.
Question, staff. How much does it add to, here's my concern. I always like PUDs. You know, I'm the one usually beating the drum for that. But we're in a crisis mode where we've got homelessness out of control. We're slowing down the process. And this is the opportunity to get 200 units up and running and get some of these people in homes. And the concerns, I appreciate your concerns, believe me, I do. But it's a different use. So that's transitory housing. That's going to be people that don't care. This is permanent housing. So these will be neighbors. These will be a community. So I'm concerned about the PUD slowing things down and adding more to the cost where we need to keep housing affordable. So I guess I would like the applicant to weigh in on his thoughts on a PUD. Those are my concerns.
Thank you, Commissioner Lomas, through the chair. It's the property owner's intent that they can move as quickly as possible. So the way it's outlined in the staff report, if you were to recommend the approval to go to City Council as it sits today, it would go through a site plan review process. So it would take some time to develop the plans for the transition that's going to occur. Then those would be submitted, and then that would trigger the site plan review at the planning level. And then that planning level, they'll take usually about 30 days is what my experience has been. They'll develop conditions of approval as we go through the site plan review process. And then once we have those conditions of approval, then we submit revised building plans to the building department so that construction and remodel can actually begin. So there is a long process ahead of us to get there to get these units ready. So while PUD was requested, it would not be the property owner's preference. But if that is what the commission would like to do, we would not object either.
And why would it not be his preference?
Just the timing. It adds additional time, then there'll have to be another public hearing, there'll have to be a posting, and it goes through the whole process of having to, as staff can tell you, once you have to do a posting, there's certain rules about how it has to be posted and the times involved, and it just elongates the process. Plus with throwing the PUD on it, then it has to go back to staff. Staff's going to then have to work on it, and it's the applicant's intent to move intentionally and move as fast as they can. So it's it would probably add, I don't want to speak for staff, they can probably give you a better answer, but I'm going to guess anywhere from 3 to 6 months. Am I probably overshooting a little bit?
That's my question. How much time does that add?
With our staffing levels, it probably adds 2 to 3 more months. But I would also recognize that there is no intention to expand this building. Mr. Johnson can confirm that.
Yes.
So if we come back with the PUD, I'm not sure what is gained other than looking at the landscaping, which we will ensure meets development standards through the site plan review process. We'll ensure the parking meets standards. I'm not sure what's going to be gained because the elevations are likely not going to change, or if anything, improve.
And this is, to me, this is a unique opportunity to get some housing up and running quite quickly. So I'm not in support of the PUD, and I can't believe I said that out loud.
You want to make a motion?
Well, I'll wait to hear what everybody else has to say. Thank you.
Commissioner Cater, did you want to speak? All right. Okay, here we go.
I would say, can I ask a question? How long ago did the current owner that's planning to make the housing purchase the property?
I don't have an answer for you tonight.
How long has the extended stay been in operation?
I don't have an exact date, but I believe it was sometime maybe July or August, but I could be wrong.
Of last year? Okay.
I could be wrong.
Okay. I would just say, as a city, we have limited tools to include the public in the development process, and I think kind of the largest concern that I've heard tonight is a lack of transparency in the process of what's planned for this site and perceived negatives without any knowledge of what positive might come. As a commission, we can't hold meetings, we can't have people come together. I think providing an opportunity for the developer to present in a forum that is not site plan review, which is an exclusive staff review, provides just a little bit more information and transparency. And my only trepidation of this project is just how the site is currently being used by the developer that is proposing the new use, and the need to be a little bit more forthcoming about their plans. So in that regard, yeah, I will defer to the other commissioners. I would still support the PUD, but I'm curious other commissioners' thoughts.
Commissioner Bowers. Oh,
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Cater, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. Still, my answer is the same. I'm prepared to not make this process more arduous and support staff recommendations. So if there's any other commissioners that want to weigh in, that's my motion.
We have a motion from Commissioner Bowers. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second, Commissioner Lomas. Go ahead and register your votes.
Motion is approved with Commissioner Basher-Tash and Commissioner Wade absent.
Commissioner Johnson, or Mr. Johnson, would you like to talk about the
appeal?
Say that thing you say.
Yes, thank you. So decisions of your commission are subject to appeal by any person that believes they are adversely affected. The appeal must be filed in writing within 10 days from the date of the commission's decision. The appeal must be addressed to the city council and include the appellant's interest in or relationship to the project, identify the decision appealed, and address the facts and reasons why the commission's decision should not be upheld. And I would also ask that our principal planner, Cassandra Gale, who's sitting in the front row here, if she has her business cards, if she would give it to the members of the audience. And that way they can keep in touch.
Notice he didn't offer to give his card. But no, that's great. That's a great recommendation, Mr. Johnson. Thank you. All right. Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item number 7, workshops.
Thank you. Let me catch up where we got to catch up with you there. Mr. Johnson, do you have any workshops for us?
Again, I'd like to invite back our Development Services Director, Mr. Boyle. He's going to be presenting on the annual housing element report.
Boy, it really clears out here when they mention your name, don't they? Yes.
Well, thank you, Planning Director Johnson. It's absolutely a pleasure to be here tonight, and how topical that our 2 pulled items are about housing. And my conversation tonight is so topical. It's on housing. Thank you for having me back, Chair Coleman, Vice Chair Lomas. Let's just jump right in. Tonight, we're going to talk about the annual progress report for the housing element. This is a requirement to provide for presentation in advance of the formal submittal of the housing element to the State Department of Housing and Community Development for their perusal and ultimate approval. So tonight we'll start with the housing element progress report. We will move rapidly into the status of affordable housing projects in the community, and then we'll wrap it up by looking at our 6-cycle housing element progress, which is moving rapidly to being a very public process. You guys may not have ever seen a table like this that defines what your regional housing needs allocation looks like and then relates your progress to the numbers that are originally assigned. The city's original 5th cycle housing element required 36,290 or allotted to the city of Bakersfield 36,290 residential units as a target to be completed in the 8-year cycle, which is the housing element. More so, if you look over to the far left, you'll note that there's a VL, an L, an M, an AM. That stands for the income levels for each of the individual units. So our goal was to produce 99,706 units of very low, 5,800 of low, 6,453 on moderate, and then above moderate, 14,000. You could say market rate when we say above moderate. And each year over that time span, the city it would be presenting to the HCD an annual report. It wasn't actually required to be prepared until 2017 as a state mandate. And so sometimes you might see some big numbers here and there. You certainly will when you see the actual tables returned to HCD, because we did a catch up when it became the law. So we reported several of the first years. Right now, we're in our 7th year. And I think I didn't present to you last year. We went directly to City Council. So it's good to be here. In 2020, staff was very pleased to report 239 affordable units being developed, and as many very low and low units that then have been produced in the 6 years combined before. And that was really a byproduct of Measure N, Public Safety Vital Services Measure, and those monies beginning to be inserted into the system and allowing for the city to better partner with our development community specific to affordable housing in bringing projects to the marketplace. This last year, in 2021, sorry about that, yeah, 2021, the city only brought 158 units to completion. Those are kind of outside, and we'll look at the reasons why, but the reasons for that is really out of the city's control, really. I remember telling the city council last year that it was my expectation that we could do as many as 250 units over the 2021 calendar year. And I think we would have if it wasn't for supply chain issues and the extension of the pandemic and other matters that made it in some cases advantageous to maybe slow down a little bit within their development process, and in some cases that really forced to slow down in the development process because there wasn't materials available for them to move forward. Long and the short of it, 158 total units that we're able to count in our 2021 housing element update. So what does that look like? Well, the realities of our housing element goals aren't very good. Whereas the last 2 years, we've championed, look, we've done, holy Toledo, we've done 397 units in the last 2 years when we almost did no units that were affordable in the 6 years previous to that. But when we look at the overall sum of our efforts in a 7-year span, 7 out of the 8 years, we've produced 5.2% of our targeted very low, 2.4% of our targeted low. We've done a great job in providing moderate and above moderate housing to the community. But I had to look into the reporting as to why all of a sudden we stopped seeing moderate housing. And that's really a byproduct of how the city was calculating a moderate home versus above moderate. I think moving into our next 6 cycle, the city is going to look at creating formulations that allow us to better vet our market in identifying moderate income units that come onto the marketplace. In essence, total housing production averaged 1,827 units annually in these first 7 years, and that's only 40% of the overall goal. We really needed to average 4,537 units annually to actually attain our regional housing needs allocation as assigned to us in 2015. That's hard. So before we look at the whys, we'll buy a new, there we go. We'll buy a new clicker, or a battery. So why did we only get 158 units? Well, if we look at what's in the pipeline right now, actually, we have 441 total units currently in process and uncounted on the APR, the Annual Progress Report. And so let's just look at what those look like. We have some farm worker housing, 58 units on the east side of town, over off Willis. We have the second half of the 1622 rehab. Originally, we were able to count in 2020 the first half of that rehab, which was 43 units plus the overall rehabilitation of the former Tropicana Hotel. And but the second phase, completing the interior remodel of those 44, the final 44 units, did not make it to our APR this year. We were expecting to see the 6th Street apartments come to permit. That was an additional 40 units. That didn't happen. Sagewood Apartments, that came across your dais. That was a fast-track project that's been highly supported. Those 72 units, they're ready for permit, but we're not able to count them in this period. Renaissance at Baker, excited about that, 84 units. That's got all its funding in place, and we're really pleased that it was part of a successful Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities grant application, which really means this project will come out of the ground. That's exciting. Not able to count it. 22nd Street Lofts, in the paper recently, had a fire on the roof. That slows down their getting across the finish line. But that's additional 20 units that will have to wait till next year for us to add to our overall count. And then currently, right now, we don't have a formal application, but there's 126 units proposed at F and Golden State as part of the city share property. That would add 126 units of modular housing across the street from our future high-speed rail station. So why would I segue into talking about our regional housing needs allocation? In part because it's a natural connector to the 6th cycle housing element, and in part because once upon a time, the regional housing need allocation was more of a target. There isn't a penalty for the city not to ascend to creating all that housing in the 5th cycle. But there appears to be more of a trend towards the RHNA becoming a mandate tied to our housing element compliance. It was actually written into law and then scratched out of it in the 2019 cycle, where other pieces that provided enforcement capabilities to HCD were kept in. Today, I think it's reasonable to believe that our success in generating housing will very much be tied to housing element compliance moving forward. So let's do the math. Right now, the numbers that are circled in yellow are the methodology was approved by KernCog last week. That means that the methodology that they employed was forwarded to HCD, and HCD had already provided a letter that essentially said your methodology in creating your 6th cycle regional housing need allocation numbers is per our standards. So it'll be formally approved by HCD, and then COG can move forward with formally releasing RHNA numbers. Right now, you see the draft across that. That's because these numbers haven't absolutely been formalized, but I think that it's more of a formality in that HCD has already approved the methodology with which these numbers were created. And they assign to the city a 37,461 total unit assignment over the years from 2023 to 2031. And that's a big number. And I was kind of hopeful that as we saw more responsibility and saw the import of RHNA numbers growing as a product towards encouraging cities to generate more housing, that HCD might provide me a target that I thought was like attainable. I like to win. I like to get there. I like to, if someone challenges me, I want to say, I can do that. I'm sorry. I just don't know exactly how the city is going to generate 37,461 units of housing over the 8 years starting, not next year, but the year after. So, well, it's next year's housing counts, but we count them in 2023. So, but let's talk about what those look like. Of the 37,461 units, 18,000 and change is in the lower income categories. And there is 19,250 what I would call market rate units. So when you look at the overall countywide numbers of 57,650 units total to be produced countywide, both in the various municipalities as well as in the unincorporated areas of the community, are 37,461 is 65% of the overall total for Kern County. You look at your market rate, the city is assigned 57% of the total, and for the low income 18,211 units, the city is assigned 76% of all the low income housing assigned to Kern County overall. Let's look a little deeper at that. Noting that our total housing production needed to average 18,000 in our last cycle and 4,500 plus for overall units annually. What does that look like now? Well, for lower income, the city would have to average 2,276 units per year. And we were just championing the fact that we did 300 and something in the last 2 years, which was, more than we'd done in the last 6 years prior. That's a challenge. So last 2 years, 162 dwelling units. For market rate, we need to average 2,406 units per year. And according to AB 1505, we actually need to really double down the first 5 years, or there could be other issues associated with housing element compliance if we don't construct at least 75% of our market rate side in the first 5 years per AB 1505. So we're doubly challenged. That's something like 2,870 units annually to get to 75% in 5 years. Now, I said when I got here, I thought we should be able to build 2,500 houses annually. We're a big city. We should be able to do 2,500. Let's aim for 3,000. And last year, you might note, we did over 2,500 units last year. We haven't done that in a long time, since the big building boom in the early 2000s. Let's double that. I would need to do 4,682 units annually to be in compliance with the 6-cycle housing element. Again, I wish I had a target that I felt like I had more of a shot at. I won't have anybody but Paul to blame if I don't get there. Last year, I showed this slide, which was just the housing law that was passed in 2017. And I decided, as opposed to putting in all of the housing law that's been approved since our last housing element approved, I just decided to count them all. And there are 78 housing-related bills that were approved by the state of California between 2015 and 2021. And our task is to make certain that we are in compliance with that housing law moving forward with our housing element. That alone is a lift. So lots of houses to build and lots of work to be done right now in the here and now with staff in terms of the preparation of our housing element, such that we are in full compliance with the state's housing law as we move forward into our 6th cycle. And we are moving forward into our 6th cycle. If you go to this website, or if you go to the city's website tonight after our meeting, you will note that we are live on Bakersfield 2045, which is our general plan effort, and housing element being a component of that. The timelines are different, but the housing element is a component of the general plan. And so, whereas the general plan, and this is just a screenshot from our website, general plan is expected to be done March 2025. And if I had a mandate to Rincon, our consultant, is that you will stay on schedule. And we are on schedule. As it relates to the housing element, we are We're scheduled, we must by law be adopted by December of 2023, and we expect to be here visiting you in August or September of 2023, and we are on schedule, which is exciting news for us. You might note, I'd love to invite you to our first 2 upcoming workshops. They're now posted online. First one will be Tuesday, March 22nd. That will be at the Community House down on our street near Mill Creek Park. And the second will be the very next night, and that will be at Silver Creek Community Center, where we'll begin our community outreach as it relates to our general plan, and the housing element will be topical moving forward. Part of our economies of scale in a lot of our community outreach is taking a dual-pronged approach and having as many touch points as we can with the community, and focusing on the broad, but we'll have specific meetings that touch directly on housing and housing issues. It's certainly topical. But wait. Wow. And I want to thank the audience for sticking around for the presentation. We are really busy in development services, and ideally, and I want to apologize, ideally what we really wanted to see in our city council study session on April 6th was kind of a joint study session with the Planning Commission and the city council. I'd love to do as much as I can to make that a reality, in terms of if you could confirm with Director Johnson your availability, then we can reserve seating right here so that we can field feedback, not just from the council, but from our planning commissioners as well. I'm not sure if you're available. All I know is we're running like the wind. Mr. Johnson, we have our entire complement of advanced planning right here in council chambers right now, which should say something about how busy we are. And so we weren't able to put all the pieces of the puzzle together, but I wanted to extend that invitation. I really would love to see planning commissioners at that meeting, because it's meant really to be a study session for all. And so consider that my open invitation. April 6th.
Is that an evening? What is that?
Wednesday evening. It'll be a study session. It'll be Wednesday evening. Regular city council meeting.
Okay. So could you, Director Johnson, can you send us something to flag that for us?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Johnson. That said, it's been an absolute pleasure presenting my report to you tonight. That completes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, thank you, Director Doyle.
Thank you.
I didn't realize how well you can clear a room.
Amen. Amen. Ouch. Ouch.
So, but no, thank you for this good report. Does any commissioners have any questions? I have a couple of questions. Okay. When do we need to start banging out 4,000 houses a year? Is that 2024?
The first reporting year will be 2023. And
Okay.
that's reported in March, April of 2024.
So the question becomes, if we got to put out 4,000 houses in 2023, do we even have that much in the pipe?
Well, that's an interesting question. Thank you. If you looked at it from a strictly RENA perspective, the 2015 housing element had something like 280% of the required units called out in what's known as a vacant sites inventory. So we had a lot of units available at that time. But today, we're in the process of converting McAllister Ranch to a groundwater recharge facility, and that area had 11,000 units, or about 5% total. But many of those units were very low and low income units. So we're tasked right now. If you look at the timeline in your slides, you might note that we're starting to assemble our housing property inventory, and the target now would be to have about 125 to 130% of our allocation identified within our vacant sites inventory. And we're also, so I guess we're going to be prepared to do that, but here's the rub, Chair. The city doesn't build a house, but the mindset coming out of Sacramento today is that we build houses. What we do and what I would challenge our Development Services Department to facilitate is to be able to process that kind of development and do it in an expeditious fashion from application to occupancy. So we'll have an adopted housing element by December of 2023 that will have the land identified, and that land will be vetted by HCD, and they will say, okay, you have the necessary inventory of land to build the homes that we desire to have built. But I know for a fact that Mr. Fernandez does not have his GC license, and so I'm not going to allow him to build anything. We can only process what comes to us. And we're going to do everything we can to have a fully compliant housing element with ample inventory to do just that.
One of the other things that we always try to assess is where we stand compared to other communities. So we seem to have failed miserably in the last 5 years. How does that compare to what other communities like us have done?
Regrettably, favorably. You have to remember that if you look at those last years, what happened the year before where we saw some fairly robust development? I think the year before we went to zero, we had something like 194 low-income units come across the finish line, something like that. Well, during the recession, the state of California disbanded the redevelopment agencies. So the mechanism that had been in place to create low-income housing was disbanded by the very agency that now commands me to build more housing. It could be frustrating. I'm not sure I want to belabor it, at least not from the microphones.
I'm going to turn it over to Commissioner Cater.
I just wanted to commend the list of affordable housing projects in the pipeline. I think it's really exciting because I think looking at this, I think it's an ambitious target, but it seems like from the market rate side, we're pacing to a place to get there, but that affordable housing is where it's really lacking. And so I just want to applaud the city's efforts in this growing list of projects, and then just ask if this is a trend that you see the city being more competitive of going after housing grants, and then these grants proliferating and making affordable housing projects easier to kind of work through the pipeline. Because it seems like it went down to zero and now it's kind of shooting back up, and that's exciting, and I just love to hear a little bit about that.
I would say that with the formation of Economic Community Development Department and the utilization of SB2 grant monies a few years ago to start standing up meaningful tools like an Affordable Housing Trust Fund that we've populated with PSVS dollars, and we're looking for matching funds from the state of California, that we're seeing some of the fundamental pieces that go into a robust and repeatable housing strategy for low-income, affordable housing. It's there. What I don't know is there's a couple of things. The affordable housing community, the developers of affordable housing, it's not a huge marketplace. There are not a lot of developers that focus in on developing affordable housing projects. And it's a complex equation to develop affordable housing. It's not necessarily affordable. You might have saw on one of the slides where I'd put ESG, Community Development Block Grant, HOPWA. There are so many pots of money that go in, TCAC, tax credit allocation applications, the city's own PSVS funds. Lots of pots of money come together, and then they're tied together with an investment strategy where those individual projects have investors that have a long-term vision for return on investment. So there's not a lot of those developers in the pipeline doing this, and so there's only a finite number of units that I think that the private side can bring to bear we can process more units. I'm confident that we can do that. We can scale our organization to build lots and lots of affordable housing projects, but we have to have developers to build it because, again, we don't build anything.
And then my other question was, I think as a community, we haven't seen it as extreme as other communities in California, but kind of that eroding number of kind of middle income units. Are you seeing any growth patterns in private development housing that meets the criteria of being considered middle income, or is most private development now classified compared to our median income as being kind of the above market category?
Thank you, Commissioner. That's a good question, and it's one I've been trying to answer. Previously, when Economic Community Development was doing this, doing the analysis for the annual progress report, up until about 2017, when we stopped seeing these moderate housing projects or below moderate housing projects, they were using a formula. They were going parcel by parcel, and they were above moderate. You can, that's 120% of median household incomes. So many of those household incomes in the city of Bakersfield would have the opportunity to really purchase their home from a market strategy. And they were going through each of the individual homes that would be constructed, and they were using a matrix that was about census tract, average sale prices, the median income formula, and coming to a threshold number that homes below that a particular sale price could be considered as moderate. And the city moved away from using that strategy. And so I'm just learning this stuff in the last week. As you start to put together a presentation, you say, I wonder why, and then you try and get an answer. So I just talked with Cecilia in ECD yesterday. Cecilia was the individual who developed that strategy, and so I think that I'll be challenged to have staff as we move forward with future annual progress reports develop a similar type of formulaic approach so that we might be able to vet more of that market rate into the moderate income category. We certainly had developers who were building towards first-time home buyer programs and the like. I just don't think we're adequately capturing it right now. I think we've captured every unit that was developed last year. It was a great year. 2,500 plus units, great. I think it kind of demonstrates that we can build at that level, and it actually demonstrates that we can build more. I just don't know if we're going to get all the way to 4,600 units a year.
Thank you again for the presentation.
Thank you. Any other questions?
One of my concerns is that, as we develop very low income housing and even low income, even some moderate, is that it all seems to be in Commissioner Biddle's, neighborhood. So the question is, how do we spread this around? How do we incentivize developers to build some of these projects in areas that, they're not the downtown? Do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, Chair Coleman. I think what we're going to find within those 78 bills that affirmatively furthering fair housing and being able to make those findings within our housing element will require that affordable housing is distributed throughout the community. Laws associated with inclusionary housing strategies will also have to be incorporated within the housing element update that provide a level of assurance to the state that the city isn't focusing affordable housing into one particular quadrant of the city or otherwise, that individuals, regardless of income level, will have opportunities to live throughout the community.
Pockets, say, these parcels we're going to reserve for moderate income, and then the developers are just going to work around those? Or how are we going to?
Well, I'm a firm advocate of individual property rights. So one of my efforts right now is building consensus with property owners throughout the community to entertain higher density properties that would facilitate affordable housing being developed there. So I'm not a big fan of shoving things down people's throats. You know, I'd be, God bless America, we can do this. One of the tasks of a development services director is to build partnerships with landowners that provide for an inventory that's distributed throughout the community for low and very low housing opportunities.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Commissioner Biddle.
I love that it's coming to my downtown. You know, we've got definitely a mix of all types of people, whether that be someone working fast food or working at a local bar or working at an insurance company. So seeing that mixed use and seeing the different levels of housing come to my area, great. I'd love to see it to go out to other areas as well. But what are we doing to try to kind of bridge that gap in between the developers and the city and really encourage more private citizens to take on some of these projects?
That's a good question too, as well, Commissioner. When you look at the package that the city is building, we maybe are one of the most forward and progressive communities in terms of trying to be pro-housing. And I just so happen to have a slide beyond the questions. Darn it all if I didn't have that hidden there. The state has an application process to be determined to be a pro-housing policy city. And some of these, if you look at some of these policies, that it's a point-based system. So you have to get X amount of points to become a pro-housing city. And right now, there's only one pro-housing city in the state of California. Recently occurred with Sacramento reaching pro-housing policy status. But if you look at the things that are on this, that are point-gathering components, adoption of accessory dwelling unit ordinances. We have adopted accessory dwelling unit ordinances, and we'll amend those ordinances as part of our housing element to be in full compliance with the state, because there's like 6 or 8 different ADU ordinances, and I'm not sure if we've got all of them tied up in a nice, neat bow. The reduction of permit processing time, we're going to an online e-permitting process. Creation of objective development standards. Planning and Development Committee just recently directed staff to incorporate objective development standards within the zoning update, which will accompany, at least for residential development, will accompany the housing element across your dais and subsequently across the City Council's dais. Reduction of development impact fees. We have a affordable housing trust fund. We have a developer impact impact fee incentive program. So if you want to provide additional low income or very low income housing, we have ways to incentivize that. That program's been built by SB2, and it's being funded by PLHA dollars that are annual dollars that were assigned by the state to help us realize some of the tools that we're standing up as part of SB2. So adoption of zoning allowing for use by right. You asked me a question last time I did a presentation about by right, and that's part of the tools of allowing for people to build more housing. As relates to some of the things here, if we want to streamline processes, I think the fastest way for the hotel conversion would be to have been doing site plan review right along with their general plan and zoning. That would have cut some time down. And those are the kinds of things that we're going to want to see, because there is a place, and I don't want to ever lead the commission to believe that I don't absolutely value your job as the discretionary body for land use approvals in the city of Bakersfield. But in order to make those things happen, there is going to be a hard look at what should be by right within specific residential zones within the city, so that we could accelerate housing, the development of housing in the city. Reduce parking requirements. We have reduced parking requirements. So a lot of these things that the state is calling out as being obstructionist to the way to develop more housing, we have those things occurring right here and now, and we're not afraid to codify them as well. Hope that answers your question. Had that in my back pocket.
Well, thank you very much for your presentation tonight. We really do appreciate all that your department is doing. So thank you.
Chair Coleman. Pleasure.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item number 8, communications.
Mr. Johnson, do you have any communications for us?
I do briefly. I would be remiss if I didn't thank my advanced planning staff. I have allotment for 5 planners, and there's only 2, and they're here tonight, as Mr. Boyle stated. I would also like to thank your commissioners for showing up on this special meeting tonight so we could get through the general plan amendment window. I appreciate that. The next meeting for next month, the regular scheduled meeting for next week, is canceled. I do look forward to seeing everyone at the Planning Commissioner Academy. And then finally, wish our Deputy City Attorney good luck as she runs the marathon on the 27th.
Very nice. So where's this marathon at?
It's here in Bakersfield,
You're at 27 miles?
26.2.
Jeez, I don't even want to drive that far. So, so good luck to you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk, next item, please.
Agenda item number 9, commission comments.
Do any commissioners have any comments?
I do. It's second Saturday this weekend, so if you have an opportunity to get downtown, there's going to be several farmers markets, vendors, street fairs. I believe most of them start at 9 a.m. and they'll go to about 3 o'clock, and a lot of the local restaurants and businesses will have different things for the community. So come downtown and enjoy the weather if you've got the opportunity.
What are the area? What area is it at?
Well, we moved the Golden State Farmers Market from down there at City Serve to behind In Your Wildest Dreams. So I know they're going to have over 45 vendors back there, which is kind of exciting for F Street because we really haven't had a whole lot in the recent years. And then also down off of 19th Street and then down by the Fox Theater as well. They're going to have quite a bit going on. They do have an Instagram page and a Facebook and I believe a Twitter or whatever those things are if you want to get on there and look for more details.
Thank you for sharing that. Next item, please.
Agenda item number 10, adjournment.
There we go. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.